Hey everyone, it's Cynthia from Chiefology. Today we're going to talk about what it means to be a chief level leader. So when we talk about chief level, we're referring to positions such as the CEO, Chief Executive Officer, the COO, Chief Operating Officer, the CFO, Chief Financial Officer. You get the idea. It's those that have a chief at the beginning of their title and an officer at the end of their title and something in between. But it's those typically referred to as the C-suite or those senior level executives. And so what's unique about those types of folks and those types of roles is that they have ultimate responsibility for a functional area. Whether that area, using the examples provided before, is operations, or whether it's finance, or whether it's marketing and sales, or HR, they have ultimate responsibility. And that responsibility is to achieve a specific type of results. And so there is an end in mind, and they are responsible for delivering those results at the end of the day. Besides that, besides the ultimate responsibility for their functional area, it's also about balance. And there are two unique and distinct areas where they need to balance. The first is going to be between strategy and execution. So they need to be, in this role, a strategist. They need to wear that hat, and they need to be able to look out into the future and see, what are we going to achieve? What do we need to achieve to hit key organizational goals and objectives? And relate that to their respective area and ensure that they know what their results need to be, and strategically put a plan in place that is going to allow the organization and their function that they are over to achieve those results. So it's about creating that direction, aligning it with where the overall organization is going, which that direction is responsible to the CEO. They need to establish that with the support of the full leadership team, but ultimately that's the CEO's role. But then the other chief level leaders for their functional area need to figure out that alignment with that overall organizational strategy. What is it that their area needs to deliver? And how do those relate? So making sure that it's not done in a silo, because these functionals are not just purely verticals. They need to go horizontal and they need to connect. And so ensuring that they understand both the vertical and the horizontal and have that plan in place. So it's having that plan, wearing that strategic hat, and in addition, they need to be able to then execute on that plan and put on a different type of hat that requires turning it into action, and then turning that action ultimately into the results. So they have to toggle back and forth between seeing that long-term view, and then from a short-term perspective, what are the specific actions that need to occur, and who is responsible for those actions, and how do they connect with one another in order to achieve that higher level strategy and get those outcomes or results. So that's the first balance, is between strategy and execution. There's also a balance that needs to occur between tasks and relationships. Now, the task side goes hand in hand with what we were just talking about. So when you think about strategy and operations or execution, that's kind of the task. That's the what the organization is going to do. Now, there's also a why associated with that. That's that bigger picture, is the why. But then there's the what the organization is going to do, and even the how it's going to be done. That's the task side. We don't want to leave out the relationship side. It can't be all about task and just driving forward on task without paying attention to the people side of the equation. Otherwise, you end up having potentially a bunch of dead bodies in your path, which in the long run is not going to work well for you, because you need to make sure that you have your folks who are motivated and capable to deliver and really execute on that strategy. So taking care of them, making sure they have the right capabilities, making sure they have the capacity so that their plate is not overwhelmed or too full, that you're taking something off if you're putting something else on, so that you're able to keep the focus on the priorities. So taking care of the relationships. And we're talking right now really about the workforce, but they're not the only relationship that a C-level leader needs to keep in mind, of course. There are multiple others. So there is the workforce, and even an extended workforce, not just those that are directly employed by the organization, but also those suppliers, partners, collaborators, others who are not directly employed, but who still play a key role in the delivery of your products and services. So those are additional relationships. But first and foremost, even before all of those, comes the customer. So your customers and other related stakeholders, whether that means you have stockholders or not. So there's nonprofits that don't necessarily have stockholders, but they certainly have others who are interested in their outcomes and want to have input in their outcomes. So there's a big balancing act that goes into play with these relationships. And so it's about not just the strategy and execution, but also that task and the relationship. So it's all of those pieces coming together. So there's a lot. That's that chief level leader, that CXO, fill in the X in terms of what the nature of their function is, what they need to be thinking about, what they need to be doing. But those are the key elements that they are focusing on and what they are thinking about. So that's a little bit about the chief level leader. And it's important for organizations to ensure that they are consistently preparing those chief level leaders. Oftentimes we think that once they get into that role, they know everything they need to know and they're going to be able to succeed on their own, but that is so rarely the case. It's constantly about growing and developing and changing and ensuring that you're able to meet changing needs in the environment, outside the organization as well as inside the organization. And so they need to continue to improve their skills, their capability, and their confidence to be able to deliver on those results, because it begins and ends with the results that they're responsible for achieving. So that's a little bit of sharing about that role and how to ensure that they are consistently developed. And if you are an individual who's wanting to move into one of those roles, then ensuring you have the right skills and experience necessary to be successful. So thanks. Talk to you later.